Hey guys, Koizi here. Instead of using words to describe what went wrong in 2024, here's some memes that do a better job of describing the worst moments of that year. You see what's wrong with 2024 now? Okay, how about we talk about the least of the year's problems? Now, on the best list, I said that there's not enough amazing animated features to come out in 2024, but that's because half of that best list is just good, while the majority of the worst list is really bad. I'm talking not 1, not 2, not 3, not even 5, but 8 dislike badges and a devil badge. There is so much garbage here that it almost made the entire list. I'm Koizi, and these are the top 10 worst animated films of 2024.
Don't you know that everything won't go as planned? 'Cause they're all mad in Wonderland. If you ever get there then you'll understand. It's a topsy-turvy world in Wonderland.
Before we get to this worst list, I have 4 honorable mentions this time. Now, these honorable mentions are either decent at best or mediocre at worst. Half of these films almost got on the top 10, before I decided to play catch-up with the movies that are in the top 5. With that said, the honorable mentions are Film of the Unicorn, the definition of a mixed bag. Although, it snuck in a good message on AI. If not as funny as the Deadpool films or Detective Pikachu, but it is way better than Free Guy. The Garfield movie feels like a movie that came out 5 years late, just like that song made for Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Mufasa the Lion King would have been a decent Lion King prequel if it didn't copy Transformers 1 so much. These are not good movies whatsoever. However, they are not bad enough to be on this list either. That makes these films just okay, and being that is okay. To start off the list, we actually have a spin-off of 2021's The Loud House movie. That film was a lot of fun with an easy story to follow, decent animation that made the most out of its limited materials, characters that kept their charm from the 2016 series, and musical numbers that are catchy and upbeat. It wasn't the best Nickelodeon movie out there, but it was a good feature debut of the one boy with 10 sisters. So how well did the Kaza Grands do for their feature debut? Unfortunately, their new movie was a disappointment. The problem with the Kaza Grands movie is that this movie is so generic. The story didn't do anything new for this franchise, the characters are weaker versions of themselves, rhythm-wise, and the comedy was not spicy enough for a Nickelodeon movie. Don't get me wrong, the heart is in the right place, and the animation was a much bigger upgrade than the Loud House movie, but this movie still disappoints. When it comes to the other 5 out of 10 movies like Garfield and Mufasa, at least those films were made for bigger audiences that might want to see them, but the Kaza Grands movie is starting this list for appealing to a more niche audience and being based on such a lesser-known Nicktoon that doesn't hold a candle to the biggest Nicktoon of the 2010 decade. It may not be a bad Kaza Grands movie, but it's still a big fat deception.
Don't you know that everything won't go as planned? 'Cause they're all mad in Wonderland. If you ever get there then you'll understand. It's a topsy-turvy world in Wonderland.
Now we're getting to the bad stuff, earlier than expected. There's not much I can say about My Only Girl, good or bad, because this movie is boring. It's so boring that so much of it can easily be forgotten. It's the blandest version of a magical girl romance story that you can think of. The movie is just that, a human boy who meets up with a magical girl. The story comes with so much problems. The plot has so much tropes added to it, the characters have no unique development, the comedy was non-existent, and the heart was barely polished. It might have some decent animation, but that doesn't save the bad script. My Only Girl is so bland of a magical girl romance anime flick that I do not recommend this to anime fans whatsoever. Like, why watch this, when there's stuff like Your Name, Bubble, or especially Suzume?
Don't you know that everything won't go as planned? 'Cause they're all mad in Wonderland. If you ever get there then you'll understand. It's a topsy-turvy world in Wonderland.
Oh boy, this is not a good list to put this movie. I wanted to look back. I heard some good things about this movie before it came out on Amazon Prime. I know some of you guys have this among your best animated films of the year. But, for me, when I watched it, I did not like it. Why, you may ask. This movie has just one big problem. It's goddamn pacing. Look Back is so slow of a movie that the short and simple story turns into a waste of time. The characters had too much dialogue and not much personality, and the drama was too undercooked and not effective. Even the animation is a mixed bag, where you got some potential with the art style, and some great drawing sequences, but then the realism and cartooniness were so poorly balanced that the character designs become a bit ugly, and it ruins the animation a bit. Just like the Sea Beast, Look Back is an animated film that everyone else likes and I dislike.
Don't you know that everything won't go as planned? 'Cause they're all mad in Wonderland. If you ever get there then you'll understand. It's a topsy-turvy world in Wonderland.
Oh my god. Guys, this is only the second animated feature from Skydance, and it turned out debatably worse than luck. Only this time, Apple TV Plus bailed away from Skydance Animation due to their toxic work environment thanks to disgraced animation by John Lasseter. I'm not gonna say this next year, when I talk about Cuckoo, but John Lasseter is such a creep that Disney and Pixar had to fire him in the late 2010s. The only problem with that is that those two studios should have fired him earlier, but his influence in the industry was too great for that. John Lasseter wanted revenge on Disney so bad that he started producing Disney knockoffs at a different studio. Speaking of the latter, that's basically what Spellbound is. It tries way too hard to be a modern Disney movie that it refuses to find its own voice. That resulted in a plagiaristic story, bland animation that looks like a mobile game, characters that aren't as unique or memorable as Disney's characters, and songs that are mostly a pain in the ass. But that's the least of Spellbound's problems. No, the biggest problem is the vibes that this movie tried to go for. The very attempt that I already mentioned of trying to be a Disney movie. This movie did that a whole year after Wish, a natural Disney movie meant to celebrate that studio's 100th anniversary, making Spellbound a rip-off of Wish.
Don't you know that everything won't go as planned? 'Cause they're all mad in Wonderland. If you ever get there then you'll understand. It's a topsy-turvy world in Wonderland.
Remember the SpongeBob movie that got leaked on Elon Musk's Twitter? Well, it's right here on the list as Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie. Believe me, I was not only there when the leak happened, but I was tempted to pirate it early on this cartoon and review it on Letterboxd during that leak. But of course, that was before the 2024 election in November, when I deleted my original Letterboxd account and all 46 reviews with it, including the review on this spin-off. A week later, I made a new account on Letterboxd alongside short re-reviews of all 46 animated features I reviewed pre-election, and that also includes Saving Bikini Bottom. Anyways, when I watched this movie, everyone was right about it. Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie sucks. Do you know why it sucks? That's because this is the new boss baby due to having the laziest writing for an animated feature yet. The story is automatically predictable and a stereotypical SpongeBob episode. The comedy was plain garbage, and the characters are one-dimensional, old and new. But the movie gets worse with some cringy moments such as the abysmal musical numbers, the creepy antagonist, the poor blending of live action and animation, and that scene where SpongeBob is doing the Dan Schneider. Ugh. Talk about ironic for a Nickelodeon movie that came out slightly after Quiet on Set, am I right?
Don't you know that everything won't go as planned? 'Cause they're all mad in Wonderland. If you ever get there then you'll understand. It's a topsy-turvy world in Wonderland.
You did not expect me to talk about this film, did you? That's right, Viva Pictures is back with just one wide-released animated feature. Oh boy, is this the worst animated film that Viva released yet. That is, for having the same problem as Spellbound. The attempt at being like a different studio. Which hit big, they are trying to be DreamWorks. How? By filling most of the movie with pop culture references. These pop culture references are painful. Every single modern joke is more cringe than the last, on top of the generic story of taking a lost character home, cheap animation with a failed attempt at a cyberpunk setting, main characters that are carbon copies of many DreamWorks duos, and a bland soundtrack of overused licensed songs. This movie is the 2020's equivalent to the 2006 movie Doodle, which not many of you have heard of. Why don't you go look up Doodle and watch that movie back to back with this train wreck, if you're curious to know what Doodle is?
Don't you know that everything won't go as planned? 'Cause they're all mad in Wonderland. If you ever get there then you'll understand. It's a topsy-turvy world in Wonderland.
When it comes to movies based on YouTube channels out of all things, every single one of them is worse than a typical video game adaptation. From Smosh the movie to F the Prom, and from that Shane Dawson movie to Angry Video Game Nerd the movie, none of them ever cared about being movies and instead tried to be feature-length videos from their respective channels. This one, Titan Universe Adventure, is no exception. This movie is nothing but a cash grab just made to capitalize on the popularity of Ryan's World. How exactly is this cash grab trying to capitalize on that YouTube channel? By ripping off Space Jam: A New Legacy. Everything that I've seen in this movie is way too similar to the 2021 Warner Brothers sequel. The mix of live action and animated segments, the story of rescuing family members from a fantasy world bad guy, the main character teaming up with cartoon characters, the female character carrying the live action scenes, the list goes on. Once you see these uncanny similarities by watching both films back to back, you will never unsee the similarities. The next time I see a feature film based on something from YouTube, it better be one singular web series and not an entire channel.
Don't you know that everything won't go as planned? 'Cause they're all mad in Wonderland. If you ever get there then you'll understand. It's a topsy-turvy world in Wonderland.
2024 has been the worst year for Japanese animated features that are streaming exclusives here in the US. We got a Magical Girls News Fest, a slow-paced artsy movie, and a sorry excuse of a live-action animation hybrid. But now we got to the worst of them all, which is Sailor Moon getting the same kind of movie as Black Clover Sword of the Wizard King. This is a continuation movie of a pre-existing anime made exclusively for die-hard fans. Unlike Sword of the Wizard King, Sailor Moon Cosmos is even worse than the Black Clover movie. All because there is just one problem with Sailor Moon's Netflix movie. The movie is just a cluttered mess. The story doesn't know what it wants to be, and the characters range from one-dimensional to annoying. Sure, the animation is decent, and captured the iconography of the entire franchise very well. But that alone is not enough to salvage a script that die-hard fans might like, but on its own, that script destroyed the cosmic potential of the Sailor Scouts themselves.
Don't you know that everything won't go as planned? 'Cause they're all mad in Wonderland. If you ever get there, then you'll understand. It's a topsy-turvy world in Wonderland.
Remember in 2016 when Ice Age Collision Course came out? That is, when a different franchise overstayed their welcome. That sequel alone changed people's feelings towards having more than 3 films in one franchise for life. When Despicable Me got more than 3 films, excluding the Minions duology, those feelings did not budge whatsoever. At least half the movies on this list were made for fans of their respective source material, but Despicable Me 4 shouldn't even exist. As the 4th film in the Despicable Me franchise, it is literally a repeat of Ice Age Collision Course by having a broken and cluttered story, decent animation that was wasted, too many characters trying to be as comedic as the Minions, and comedy that fell the hardest for any movie installment past 3. Speaking of characters and comedy, this is the most annoying movie I've seen all year. It's not just the Minions being annoying, but almost every character in the movie refuses to shut the fuck up. This movie is so childish and irritating that it makes Jesse's theme song sound like Born to be Wasted. Illumination, you'd better not make any more pointless sequels like this one, or else you're really gonna be as bad of a studio as everyone said you were in the 2010s. But this could have been the worst animated film of the year, if it wasn't for the #1 true worst animated film of 2024, which is...
Don't you know that everything will go as planned? 'Cause they're all mad in Wonderland. If you ever get there, then you'll understand. It's a topsy-turvy world in Wonderland.
Man, I thought Turbo was this bad. It has been my least favorite DreamWorks movie for all its 10 years of existence. I thought there is no way that anything can beat that Cars/Ratatouille ripoff as my least favorite film from DreamWorks Animation. But then their TV department decided it was a good idea to take Megamind and turn it into an horrendous sequel exclusively for Peacock. Why? Is a Megamind TV show not enough? Why the fuck does Megamind need a low-budgeted sequel to go with his TV show on Peacock? Are they trying to give the internet what they wished for on a monkey's paw by crafting something with none of the talent or effort that went into the 2010 movie? Well, thanks a lot DreamWorks for letting your TV studio replace whatever's good about Megamind with the closest thing a movie can get to watching nothing. The story feels like nothing, the characters literally had nothing to offer, the comedy was nothing, and the animation was nothing like a DreamWorks movie. Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate is not only the #1 worst animated film of 2024, but it will also cement its place as the new worst movie from DreamWorks Animation, and one of the worst animated films of all time. That's all I got for the top 10 worst animated films of 2024. 2025 won't be any better in terms of what's going on in the world or my personal life, but hopefully, I won't watch as much garbage as I did in the 24. Thanks for watching this top 10, and make sure you press all the buttons below this video and click on my link tree in the description for stuff to support like the 2 new platforms I joined, and the Patreon I have for you to pledge donations to, in order to fund certain upcoming projects for this channel. This is Koizi, signing out.